7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the minutes for the meeting of January 21. Has everybody reviewed the minutes?
Yes, I have.
Okay. There was one small typo on the minutes, so I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as amended with that typo. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have 3 warrants tonight. We have a payroll warrant for $92,275, a payroll deduction warrant of $24,850, and a vendor warrant of $137,052. I'll make a motion that we accept these 3 warrants. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the pool committee. Mr. Warren, you're up.
Well, we tried to keep something pretty simple for you here because we probably could have written 100 pages on everything we've done. And we figured you'd have questions, but basically, right before Thanksgiving, Davenport pulled out of there. We're about 95% complete. We got some really cold weather and just wasn't cooperating, so we couldn't kind of tidy up the things that were left. So there's just a little bit left to do in the spring. And a lot of what has to be done in the spring actually is kind of volunteer work that we have left to do. The committee decided to save money on this, that we would be constructing the accessible dock and doing a lot of the accessible pieces that are remaining. And then just kind of minor stuff to put the site back together. I mean, we've got to put swing sets and have people paint things and put tables in place and grills, and we're actually have donations to be able to build a pavilion, which we didn't think we were going to be able to do, so that'll be kind of nice to have in the spring. We've got lighting to do, which is also being done by volunteers. Signage, things like that. So it's a lot of work, but I think we're all excited to do it and don't see any problem getting it done. So. We thought, it'd be interesting just to show the amount of time that people have had on this. It's been an amazing community effort. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. Anybody that sat in these meetings and did fundraising with Tony, to see the amount of townspeople that got involved with donations and help and wanting to help, and people that would come back and make another donation, just unbelievable. No one could have imagined that would have happened. And I think we even caught our engineers a little off guard because they didn't think we were going to be able to get the funding to do it. So we had to push the engineers a little bit because they weren't quite ready. So, but just some information there if you want to read it. There was a lot of hours. The fundraising committee, the hours they put in, and the fact that we were able to get over $218,000 in cash donations, strictly from residents. Unbelievable. So this was there's a project funding slide there, and it just kind of shows, so you can see where the funding came from. We got that $123,000 for the conservation restriction, obviously with the intention to use it for repairs, and all of that, every penny of that went to the repairs. If you look at it another way, really most of that went to the engineering and permitting of it. But either way, it went towards the project. The M&M Germain funding, we have the $235,000 allocated, and we're going to be pretty close to that. Depending on, we're still trying to get materials donated for like the accessible dock. We get some help on a lot of that. We may come in 5,000 or 10,000 below that. It's just a little too early to know for sure, but we're going to be pretty close. We did end up getting some donations throughout the project to get the accessibility piece low enough to even be able to sign a contract with the contractor, because originally we were quite a bit over. And then again, the $218,000 in private donation is what really did it. No public funding, and there you go. So when we came to you last December, set of numbers you see there is what we had estimated. And here's where we're actually at as of today, and that includes the accessibility piece. Again, that's what's projected, but basically our engineering and permitting really got hit for about another 20 grand as the project went on. A lot of things the agencies required or weren't expected. And the turtle monitoring, that's a big one. We spent almost $10,000 on the turtles.
Were there a lot of turtles there?
Yeah, how many turtles
I mean, did you
find?
find a lot of them?
There were zero wood turtles found, discovered. Or anything.
Yeah.
But I know there, once upon a time, there was one large,
Well, there've been snapping turtles
turtle.
down there, and they did find one other species of turtle. I don't know what it was. I don't remember what
I
it
don't
was.
remember
They found a
either.
snake, but it was dead. They found a couple things, but no
that would
endangered
be
wood
normal.
turtles.
There were snapping turtles before. There's going to be snapping turtles there.
Again.
Yeah, they're, it's a natural place for them. This
Yeah.
is all because it was potentially wood turtle habitat.
Oh, what's the difference between a wood turtle and the other turtles?
Apparently,
One
everybody
costs money,
likes
the
them.
other one doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many turtles, I don't know,
And in
except
saying,
those big snappers.
and in talking about how much this monitoring cost, this woman was very good to us.
Yeah.
We got a break on
As
it.
far as, she
Yeah.
gave us a break.
Oh, that's good.
At
A
10
couple
grand.
of times when we were only working on the dam, she suspended sweeps for a week, each because they're only going to one place and doing one thing. And said, she could have charged us for all those days and done her sweep. She did a good job. She really did.
That's nice.
Yeah.
She did a lot when she was there.
She came in early so that they could go right to work.
Yeah, she was very good, but
Yeah.
she gave us a break. Huge break.
There are some awfully good people
And I
out
think
there.
as usual, you guys figured out, I think you talked with the state, say, hey, do we have to pay but no, just when you're working, so I think I remember.
Yeah, we kind of had to question it a little because,
Right.
it's nobody's fault, but people get comfortable doing their routine, and we have to say, hey, do we really need to be there? And
I like this questioning attitude this team has.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
it.
yeah, we did a lot of questioning.
You did.
But the bottom line is, our budget was right on. We had to negotiate with the contractors. We had to get more donations. We had to. Tony didn't stop fundraising until a week ago, and to make this happen. But amazing we were able to do it. So.
If we weren't able to find a company that wanted to work with us, and if we separated the two projects, the accessibility and the dam as two separate, I don't think we would have had the money.
I don't think so.
It just
either.
wouldn't have happened. But luckily, because they got both projects, they were able to do a little bit of each at the same time, cut some costs, and they wanted to work with us, so that made it happen.
And it was interesting. I don't know if I put it in here or not, but staying within budget. We started out with 5 contractors and only had 2 qualified bids. And our second lowest bid for only the dam and dredging work, phase 1 repairs, was not $415,000. It was $415,000 over our budget. So we had one option, and Davenport was very, very good at working with us, finding ways to cut costs. And like Mike said, we basically had no choice but to put the 2 phases together. We were hoping to use maybe some local or smaller contractors for phase 2, but the reality is we would have had contractors in there fighting each other, and the timelines, and the cost is the big thing. It couldn't happen.
And they worked with us on both.
And they worked with us on both phases. They were excellent in that regard.
to keep costs down. They were very good. They were very good to us.
Very
I
good.
remember Charlie, I was saying too, at the base of the foundation of the dam, that the plans call for just so much rebar to be showing above, and he said the Davenports put in longer ones, taller ones.
Because they knew it was supposed to be
Yeah,
long.
and I thought that was really good too.
Well, I'm glad they're
Yeah,
local people too.
Right,
Sure.
absolutely.
I like that idea.
Yeah. I think it's just important to know that the committee and, just people worked, Tom McCarthy while he's at work, Jim while he's at work, everybody is
You
calling the
while they're at
contractors,
work.
and, it's a constant negotiation to keep things on schedule. It's amazing how many phone calls and meetings and everything took place. So, and so with the Tremaine funding, which is more pertinent to tonight, let's see. Our contract with Davenport was about $200,000. And then the remaining work that was either subcontracted or that we're doing ourselves. And the reality is, I don't know if we've subcontracted anything.
Not yet.
We really aren't. I mean, it's really mostly volunteer and things we're doing ourselves. We have an electrician that's volunteering.
It's paying for more materials than volunteers actually installing it and doing it.
Right.
You know, I used to do sign painting. I don't know if you have anybody who's doing that, but I could do some of that. It wouldn't save a lot of money, but I see at $500.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for everything. I think I have a woman that's gonna make a sign for the road.
Not if you don't give her electric blanket back.
Yeah. And Mike has volunteered a new rules sign for the pool. But you never know. We'll keep that in mind, Jim, for sure.
Okay.
But this is, we're fortunate. Denise Dwelly's on the committee, and she's familiar with the rain garden. She does that at Deerfield Academy, so she's going to help us do the rain garden
Yeah,
planning.
obtain and plant the plants we need to do that.
Like I said, Daryl Chase is helping us with the electrical and his license, and in reality doing most of the work. Charlie Alice, our resident contractor, Tom McCarthy designing the dock. Coming up, it's funny, they've probably been through 4 iterations of the accessible dock and really have something good that's going to work. It's really coming together. It's nice we can get it all done by doing a lot of volunteer work on it and getting things donated. So. And then there's 2 things here. There's the nickel and the wood turtle, and it was just kind of some information because they were probably the 2 biggest issues in the project that kind of drove costs up. And you can read about this nickel if you want, but the reality is the nickel is in the soils. It's naturally occurring. It's perfectly safe, especially at the levels that were detected. The DEP is changing it next year to 620 times.
Yeah.
What
It is now.
what it is now.
This year, or not?
Or this year, actually, yeah. This spring, it's supposed to be
I
finalized.
say people have dropped a lot of money in the pool or something.
Yeah. Well, it costs a lot of money.
That was
I
probably
can tell you
Mike Kirklonis when he was there with all that money in his
Yeah.
pocket swimming.
Ron kind of did.
Yeah.
Yeah, wrong kind
But
of.
it's very ironic, it's the regulations allow it to stay in there with kids swimming in it, and it's perfectly safe, but if you take it out, it's a hazardous material, so a contaminated material, so it's,
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we couldn't get that out was if we found somebody that would take it, it was mandatory, we had to attach that to their deed. And nobody in their right mind would want to do that. So we couldn't take it out, period.
or we would have to haul it to a facility like in Connecticut, and it would, you're talking a couple $100,000 to get.
Just to do that.
Right.
Yeah, so we ended up taking about 1,800 yards of clean material out, and then there's 1,200 yards in this corner that we weren't able to dredge, that we'd still like to do. We'd like to do it this year, but that's going to be a funding thing more than anything, and we're actually leaving permits open in case we have the ability to do that.
Oh,
But
good.
if
So you can do that with permits.
we can, yes, we can leave them open, yeah. So that was just, if you hear about the nickel thing, really was, at the beginning of the project, it became a huge permitting thing, and we spent a lot of money on additional tests. Again, we did a lot of volunteering. Jim went down there, took all the samples the second time, worked with the engineers, and there's more permitting, working with the agencies, how do we make this happen, iteration after iteration, and it makes the contractors very, very nervous, because if they,
Yeah.
vary from the plan at all, everybody's hands are tied and stops the project, and it's really over nothing, which is unfortunate.
Mhm.
Just like the wood turtle.
And the wood turtle, yeah, that was another one. It was, the wood turtle, we all care about the wood turtles, but somebody draws a line on a map, says this is potential habitat. Wood turtle has never been seen there. And, basically it costs us about $10,000 in the project. And we're lucky it only cost us $10,000 because, as Jim said, Emily Stockman gave us a break on the monitoring cost. She actually cut her costs in half. And then she worked with the agencies to, once there was really no work being done in that area, to stop the monitoring. But she had to be there every morning doing her sweeps before they could start their work. So And we never saw a wood turtle.
Nope. Is a wood turtle something like a terrapin? No.
I don't
We don't know. Nobody's ever seen a wood
I don't think
turtle.
you'd,
Yeah.
we've seen pictures as part of this project, but I don't think you'd know it was any different from any other turtle if you saw it, you know, the size or whatever. And
Oh,
Emily herself has only seen 2 wood turtles in
Yeah.
Massachusetts in her life.
okay. Wow.
Emily's
Wow.
Great story.
Kind of
Wonder how
drives the
much
point.
revenue she's
Yeah.
generated
Yeah.
looking for
Expensive
them.
story.
No, yeah.
So I don't know if you had a chance been down there. I don't have any great pictures. It got cold and wet and snowy. But it really is different down there with the accessible parking and now the walkway that goes all the way down to the beach, accessible to the pavilion. The whole site really looks nice and cleaned up, and once it's grassed there, I think people are going to be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, you guys did a fantastic job.
Yes, you have. And I like the way you put this together. This is very nice.
One thing I'd like to just note from you guys looking at it, when you go down there, off to the right-hand side, if you're kind of like looking at this picture, you can see all the brush that's over there, and I had a couple comments from people, why didn't we clean that up? And I wish we could have, but for the Concom and wetlands area, we can't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing.
On the other
I think
hand, we're gonna
everybody-
clean a lot up on the other side.
Yeah.
Where we can.
I think everybody understands it's involved in DEP and the wetland issues. You have to leave it in as good or better shape than you started, so you can only disturb so much. We actually had to make some give and takes here and there. One of the big expenses was the project was a $15,000 culvert, basically, not culvert, catch basin. Because that was kind of to offset some of the other environmental impacts, is you gotta put in this $15,000 catch basin that separates the materials, and, you know, it's, I don't know if any of us think it works better than a basic catch basin, but that's what we had to do. So,
That's just picking up water off the road.
correct, yeah, stormwater.
Some kind of swirling thing.
Yes.
I guess we'll find out.
Mhm.
But the reality is, it's, you know, if people wanted to go down there and swim today, they could. And
Yeah.
the hardest part we're gonna have, I think, is keeping people off the grass areas till it grows.
Mhm.
But other than that, other than this volunteer work, which should be done by the time anybody gets down there, we'll be good. And we're hoping that Parks and Rec will still do their, if things are stable here, do their little thing at the end of the school
End of the
year.
school year.
And have people down there.
We'll put a little rope around it and say, please stay off the growing
Yeah.
grass.
And the grass should be in pretty good shape.
should be,
Before
yeah.
the water's
It
warm
really
enough to
should
go
be.
in.
Yeah, it should
Yeah,
be. You're right.
yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
theory.
because that's not till the middle of June that we have
So it's
to.
already been seeded.
There are some grass
Some of
seeds
it
that
has,
grow
some
off
of
it
it
fast.
has.
Yeah, they did initial seeding, but it has to be reseeded
Yeah.
this spring.
Because
Yeah.
you know, we never got enough warmth to germinate, so.
Yeah.
So I got a question. Have you guys learned anything through this process?
Don't volunteer.
I mean, you seem like really sharp cookies, but I was just curious, have you learned something through this
If we
2.5
If
year
we
process?
didn't, it's a shame, yeah, sure.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
We all learned a lot.
All right.
You
Well,
know,
I remember back when you guys did your presentations, you were in the school gym, again, this was, quite a while ago,
Yeah.
and I remember people saying, well, bake sales, again, it was just that brainstorming, and then that little bit of brainstorming ended up, getting this man and you guys, and the meetings, and the hours, and the concerts, and, yeah, I mean, I think what we learned is, with a lot of hard work from volunteers like you guys, the rest of the town just followed suit. So we got a great town with a great pool now.
It's unbelievable, because if there was just one person missing, this wouldn't happen. I mean, Charlie Alice for
Oh, boy.
2 months, every day,
Yeah.
was at that pool
Yeah.
supervising, making sure things were done right. I mean, it was
Yeah.
good he was there. And when he couldn't be there, Joe Zadroga was down there. I mean, and
And-
we didn't have time to do fundraising.
And then we hear
Tony's doing all the fundraising.
from people in town that they think Joe and Charlie are getting paid
You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be there.
they're getting paid
Yeah,
for
I
it.
know.
You know, that's,
Yeah.
but they're,
Yeah, if you hear any rumors,
Yeah.
come to us, because
Yeah, 'cause-
there's a few rumors out there.
Rumors? Really? Cut it out. Are you
And when,
kidding?
I was
It
looking
happens,
at,
Rick.
I was looking at this yesterday, a ton of times, and I was thinking yesterday afternoon, because I was talking to our engineer, Eric, at 5:30 in the afternoon. On a Sunday, I'm thinking, 3,000 hours might be low when you really think of
Yeah.
the amount of
That's true.
time. You know, and then, you know, a lot of times it was hard because it was emails or texts at, what, 5 in the morning, or 4:30 or 5 before we're going to work, and, you know, all it's just trying to be crammed in because a lot of people forget, as volunteers, most of us had jobs to do every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're,
And we're still at the site every day checking on it. And
yeah, yeah,
No,
all during
it's
the
amazing. I mean,
field,
the reality is
sure.
that construction took, you know, 3 to 4 months, and even that time was stressful for us. I mean, it was we were still heavily involved. We had issues we had to deal with that came up, but the fact that the other year and a half was just permitting and fundraising, and we were within 3 days of canceling it for last year because we didn't have the last permit, and the contractor needed to start the next week.
And that was the Army Corps of Engineers.
That was the Army
Yeah,
Corps of Engineers.
right.
So it all came together in one day. We said, let's go, and away we went. And I think the engineers kind of said,
A
Get ready.
miscalculation we made, a learning thing. We all thought as construction kind of wound down, it would ease up on us. And the last 3 weeks for all of us were worse
it was a
than
scramble.
all the rest. You know, it was just all these little things.
Yeah, you gotta-
And you had to be there and look at it, and we were just roving. You know, we were all there all the time, all trying. And we were talking about it a few weeks before, going, oh, things are going to ease up. We may go to 1 meeting a week. Yeah, right. That didn't work. And we learned that the end of the project was something we weren't prepared for. You know, it was just came on fast, and the weather got cold, and there was all these little things that needed to be done. The light pole was an issue that wasn't an issue, and all of a sudden it was a big issue. You know, getting the old one out of there, convincing Wemco to take the old one out and put a new one in. And
Yeah, I mean, the volunteers were down there installing the swing set when it was, I don't know, 30 degrees out, and then the next day it snowed.
yeah,
So it was,
Actually, another thing I've learned is, you know, we're filming these meetings on FCAT, Franklin Community Access Television. And actually, a number of people watch this show. I'm amazed. I mean, I know it's exciting TV, but what I've learned from a little feedback from folks is there are folks out there watching this. So I think this is a good medium also to say that, you know, you as a volunteer team, I think the town not only in contributing, but also I think hopefully in the next weeks until we start jumping in the pool, hopefully people will come and thank you for all your good work, because you know, we as elected officials know what you've done, and I'm hoping folks out there appreciate as much, which I'm sure they do.
Right.
And it's nice to hear thank yous once in a while.
I think there are 2 things that really impressed me in this project. One was the committee. They worked so hard, and so many frustrations, but they hung with it, and I'm really impressed with the committee, and I think they did a wonderful job. And the other thing is how much the pool meant to the residents of Conway, the way that they came forward and gave money and support, and it really made the fundraising easy because they wanted to see the pool back.
in a
If I can
world
just,
where we're
if
so
I can just add to
fragmented.
that, the
Yeah.
people that are no longer residents as well.
Yes, that was an interesting thing. A lot
People
of,
who grew up here haven't been here in
yeah,
30
we
years.
got a lot, some of our bigger donations came from people who moved out of town, but it meant so much to them.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
One last question. I know it's speaking too much, but is there plans for a celebration party in the spring? Or you just need to rest for a couple of months?
well, we may have a private celebration.
The committee, yeah.
But the hope is that with the end of the school year, that the Parks and Rec celebration will kind of be it.
We'll work
So,
with Parks and
yeah,
Rec.
so
Okay,
hopefully,
right. I'd
hopefully
like
in
to-
June, that'll be the plan.
That would be a truly appropriate time to do it. And, you know,
Yep.
and if you had been to any of the first, well, they had 2.
Yeah.
We've had 2 so far.
Yeah.
They were fantastic.
Yeah, all right, we'll work with
They were
Parks and Rec.
fun.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the Sportsman's Club is having a fishing derby next month
Mhm.
down there, so that would really be the first thing there.
On the 15th.
Jim said he's going to go swimming before that.
I heard.
Jim Moore?
Jim Moore, yeah.
Sure. You can tell I'm a polar bear.
Please come down if you can. Yeah.
You know, and the reality too is, you know, we had a really good contractor, we had a good engineering firm, we had our environmental scientists that worked with us. Everybody, you know, gave us a break, worked with us made it work. And like I said, it would have just taken one person to drive the cost up, and not that we didn't have to push back to make sure it stayed down, but it did work out. So.
Very good.
Yahoo!
Thanks
Yahoo!
for coming in.
Great work. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job.
I'm Dory.
Great, thank you.
Good job.
Tony, thank you, and Joe.
Still on there. I almost pulled it behind you Sunday, but I was going to the pool.
Oh. But it'll snow.
Well,
Yeah, I agree. And good snow. I can't remember.
good to see you.
I know, how you been?
Yeah, twice this year, but a day later, you couldn't anymore, so.
Well, I don't know if I told you, but who did I mention it to? Somebody was snowmobiling.
I
You.
would love to. Thank you for all your kind words.
Smith Hill has more snow than a lot of places,
Yes.
but Poland Road area gets more snow
You know,
anyway.
it's elevation.
It's the elevation.
Smith Hills, 1,460
Yeah, that's right.
feet. It's one of the highest places in
But the road going up to the top looked pretty snow covered.
Tom, how many signatures do you need on this?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
again.
Oh, that contract?
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, I don't need any now, I just need acceptance. I send it to them, they sign it, comes back, and if you approved it, then you can just come in independently and sign it, and
Okay.
I'll get it off to them.
Good.
All right.
All right, next item on the agenda is the agreement between the town of Conway and Diversified Project Management for the owner's project management services for the Conway Town Garage Municipal Building Project. Everybody has reviewed these? Okay, these have been fully vetted by our town council, and I will make a motion that we approve the contract offer to Diversified Project Management. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, budgets and budget process. Is that you, Tom?
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, how we doing?
You want a chair? You want to switch sides and sit over here?
No,
I-
not
there you
at
go.
all. I'm
You've done
very
your
happy
time.
to look at you like that.
I've continued to get some budget sheets. We had the bulk of them in last time, and we're getting closer to having a complete budget. I'm putting them together into a document that I hope to send to the Finance Committee sometime in the next week or so. It'll have some description of some of the things that we've heard from the Select Board's departments and committees, to give them a little bit of a heads up so that they'll be more informed as they go into the process. There are more that we're still expecting. The proposed Franklin Regional Council of Governments budget to be voted on January 30th has a total increase proposed of a little over $1,000, about $800 in the statutory budget and about $268 in the regional services assessment. I had expected the regional services assessment to go up considerably more for the accounting program, so if these figures are right and final, we'll be getting a good deal. I also understand our Maya insurance is expected to rise just under 5%, though again, we'll have to wait for final figures for that. That's an average of all of their clients. And that's about where we are right now. I don't expect that we'll be doing any budget work before we start meeting with the Finance Committee. And so I don't anticipate a need for a meeting next week. We can stay on the 2-week schedule until we're ready to start considering the budget with the Finance Committee.
Okay. All right, thank you, Tom. I did skip one item, or actually 2 items. Jack, do you have anything? You just here as an
I would be
observer?
very happy if I left here without saying anything. I'm here in case you have questions concerning the FERCog letter that you might be signing.
Oh, the support
Grants for the
letters?
South River.
The South
Oh,
River work.
No, we're fully in support of those.
And neither of them is technically from the FERCog. One is from the Franklin Conservation District, and the other is supporting the Connecticut River Watershed Council, though the FERCog is working with both of those groups on this grant.
Okay. I guess the reason they asked me to be here is I went and talked to the various landowners,
Okay.
and so I have a good sense of their support or hesitation in some cases. But they basically were okay with it.
I've been okay with it. I don't think we talked, but when that was,
Yeah, but the ones that
I'm
are
above
listed
where we're
there
working.
don't involve you.
yeah, right, yeah, I'm above where they're working.
Okay, if you're happy with it, I've done what I was.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Two of our South
Jack,
River,
thanks
we
for
want to
coming
protect
in.
it.
Evening.
Have a nice evening, stay warm.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do the Green Communities contract, we could take care of both of these unanticipated items at the same time.
Well, I just wanted to let Rick tell us if he was at any meetings that he wants to tell us about.
Oh yes, funny you should mention that. Actually, this past weekend, Friday and Saturday, myself and actually our town administrator, and actually Mr. O'Rourke was there as well, went to the Mass Municipal Association conference in Boston, a gathering of municipal officials from across the state, city mayors, city councilors, select board members, both our U.S. senators were there addressing the audience, and it was filled with lots of interesting workshops and lots of connections with other area legislators. So it was inspiring. There was a talk there by John Meacham, who is an author and very inspirational, talking about our service to the community, whether it be at the local level or the national level, and the fact that there is difficulties in that role, but there's also the opportunity to serve and to be proud of that service. So for me personally, I think it was inspirational, educational, and informative. So I appreciate the fact that we did spend a little bit of our taxpayer dollars to allow us to go there, and I think it was well worth it. So that's my 2 cents for what we did this weekend.
I thought it was a good meeting. I thought it was a little light this year in attendance, but still pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, you know what?
I went to the that school board meeting down at Frontier.
Oh, okay.
And Andrea Lamas, one of our residents, is chair of the Long Range Planning Committee, and they had a lot of discussion about the changing population, and our enrollment in our schools in our district are going down. And I've forgotten what the year was, but they expect we may lose 100 pupils in the next 5 to 10 years, which will have great impact on budgeting and financing. And Steve Cooley, our representative, was there, and he said that our school district is the first one of the ones that are in the district he covers that is addressing this problem. So he said maybe we can be a role model for some of the other schools, and he will see if he can get some financing for some studies to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was a very good meeting.
Did they mention the idea that Greenfield building their $100 million high school may attract students out of our
Yes,
district?
that subject did
based
come up.
on school choice.
Yes.
Could be a real heavy situation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Rick. Tom, I'm just going to go to the letters of support first. I think we've all seen these letters. These are for the conservation programs, the improving Connecticut River watershed resiliency, reducing flooding, protecting municipal infrastructure, and restoring habitat, creating resilient communities in the Deerfield River Water Project. These are letters of support that I'm going to make a motion that we sign. for these two different grants. I'll make a motion that we support both of these. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to approve the Green Communities contract for Town Hall Energy Engineering. Rick, you've been working on this, and these are monies that will come to us from our Green Communities grant, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you explain a little bit more about this to us?
Yeah, Green Communities Grant is something that actually John and I worked on actually almost a year and a half ago now. And through that work, we were able to get a grant for $139,650. And so that project, the main project for those funds will be the installation of our town hall. Right now, the installation there is non-existent. It's only cinder block and brick. In an attempt to heat that building, most of the warm air, unfortunately, leaves the building, not doing a lot of good, but enough to keep our employees warm. So, so this is step one in procuring the services of an engineer, Louis Barak, who will do a study, and then hopefully from the study we will get some plans, and then we'll get some work done. So the use of these funds will help with energy conservation and save the town money, which is the whole idea here. So make us greener, and so I recommend that we sign this contract to get Lily on the job.
Okay.
Did you mention that we just found out that the state contract has been approved today?
Yeah, so basically with any projects using these monies, one has to get approved through the Green Communities folks, which includes more paperwork and more time, but it all has to be done. So the good news is we just received the okay on this, and so we're allowed to sign this and get the work done.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we support we approve the contract for the Town Hall installation feasibility study. Do I have a second? All in favor?
You said, well, I'll second.
Okay.
It's just John that needs to sign.
All right, Tom, next item on the agenda is yours.
Just a minute, please.
I just wanted to also mention that the Conway Energy Committee, which is made up of 4 members, I'm the chair of that committee, we had been working on this for a while, so they did vote to approve recommending this to the select board. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Who seconded that, please?
Jim did.
Jim did.
The time off request, review of policy.
Yes, I have found a request form with a request for the assistant treasurer collector to take off 3 days, 4 days, I guess, in mid-March. And I guess the question is, now that you all have someone sitting in an administrator chair, whether or not these requests need to come to the select board at this level, or whether they can be brought to the supervisor or the direct supervisor, and then I can inform you.
I think you can handle this and just inform us of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glad to have you do that.
Right? That's good. next item you have is,
Yes, and then, following item on the agenda, I had sent out a concept paper, more or less, just a sheet, talking about the possibility of having some sort of clerical assistant. I had put it here as an assistant to the town administrator. That needn't be what it is. The idea is that I think this is different from what's been considered in the past, especially because it would provide support to committees. It would provide support to the board, to myself, and to committees, especially the committees that the select board oversaw. Obviously, the other elected boards have their own responsibility to develop their budgets regarding any clerical help that they need.
mm-hmm.
And I've recently been reminded of this doing the budget work and finding all of a sudden that I have more work than I can comfortably handle if I am going to work at a level which I would like to and I think would benefit the town. It's not that big a deal if I don't. I think Conway's gotten by with what it's done before pretty well. On the other hand, a little more communication with the residents about the budget and where money comes from and where it goes and how that compares with past years might be a useful thing to do. And that kind of budget analysis takes time and careful attention to detail. And that's difficult to do with some of the other things that are going on. So I listed a number of types of tasks and really just broaching the subject now in case there are people who want to weigh in, pro or con, between now and town meeting. And am interested in any of your responses initially to what I've set down here.
Well, I think certainly anything we can do to raise your level and where you're going, you're working at a higher level for the town is I'm all in favor of that, because I think that some of these things are lower level things that could be handled by an administrative assistant, and I think that's the way it should be done.
Yeah, the clerk, kind of a clerk duty.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, you know, as a start out, groundbreaking, this is good. We'll go over these things in the next couple of weeks, and we'll start to firm up some sort of a job description and move forward to see if the town will support that, if the town needs it.
One of the things I like that we were talking about is the matter of communicating with the people and having everything be much more transparent. Though it is transparent, people still don't get all the information. And Tom would like to
Mm-hmm.
do more of that in keeping everybody informed about what's going on. And I think that's a real plus.
Absolutely.
So I got a question for you, Tom. So how long have you been in this position as town administrator in Conway?
Coming up on 6 months in another couple of weeks.
Yeah. So having sat in your desk on a volunteer position, helping to keep the ship afloat between our first and second, and then second and third town administrator, I think I spent about 3 months, maybe a little bit more, attempting to do the task of quasi-town administrator, as I call myself. So I do have an appreciation for the work that comes through that desk and through that computer and through that phone line. So so I got to say, I've watched you come in here, and I think you're doing an amazing job. I think the thing that is very clear to me is that you're a great fit for the town of Conway. I think our first person didn't work out, our second person left for personal reasons, and I hope you'll be here for a long time, because I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate very much, because I know what you do. So going to the assistant, again, I know it didn't pass muster last time, but I feel like this time around we probably have to make a more of a case to the people. I think we didn't really take the opportunity to explain it as well, and I think that's why it didn't get passed. But this time around, I very much hope that it gets passed. We'll figure out the number of hours and so on and so forth. But as far as what's coming up for Conway, you know, we have our town garage coming up. You've done a huge amount of work on all the documents and setting that up. You know, the Green Communities Project, which you'll be helping on that as well. There's the 319 grant. There's the park work that we're going to be doing, which is going to be a huge project. So having a town administrator that basically can focus on these major things that have major impact. When we get this grant money, it takes a lot of time. To get the Green Communities grant money was many hours of that man's time, my time, but now we're paying this man to oversee these things. And to go out and find opportunities for grant money, so we're not spending taxpayer dollars on these things. So again, Green Communities funds took a lot of time. The grant that the Parks and Rec got for us for $1 million took a lot of time, but it's not over once you get the grant. The work and the completion and the permitting and all that, as we heard from the pool folks, is huge. So we need our town administrator focusing on that and not figuring out where all these papers get filed and so on and so forth. So I'm a strong advocate of getting an assistant and of course helping the committee and the other things. So here we go.
Thank you. If anyone watching wants to discuss this, I'd be more than happy to do that and try to get as many questions answered and details taken care of before we ask the town to make a decision on that.
Okay. All right, next thing on the agenda is your update, Tom.
Thanks. Nice little ones to save paper this time.
Yeah.
As you heard from Rick, I also went to the Massachusetts Municipal Association Conference. I also thought that went well. I was able to hear updates from our insurer, Maya, as well as participate in workshops on smart growth, fiscal stewardship, and communicating about government services with citizens, as well as attending plenary sessions and meeting with professional organizations. Very worthwhile for me, always learn things, and a chance to talk with people who are approaching similar problems in different and sometimes very creative ways is very useful to me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to go.
And actually, I believe that sending you to the conference was via STAM, which is a great organization.
Yes, the town did not pay. I will be asking for some mileage, but
Oh, absolutely.
But the conference fee was paid by one of my professional organizations.
Great.
So,
Oh, okay, that's great.
As a reward for attending their conferences throughout the year.
Oh, good.
And I will be reporting back to them on the conferences I went to and what I learned as well. I had a conference call with the state and the Parks, Rec, and Trails Committee about the MassWorks grant for the ball field. I'll be working with Dave Bodette and Dan Lawrence at Weston and Sampson to fill out the initial online form that will allow the money to start flowing. This is, the paperwork never stops, so.
Yeah.
That'll, they got the grant, now we have immediately another complex form to fill out. I did manage to get an additional $1,775 from our insurance company for the highway pickup truck, based on excellent advice I got from Dana Goodfield.
Good.
Because we set an amount to pay for the new one, this additional amount will stay in the special account and revert to free cash at the end of the year, but it is still money that will come back to the town.
Mm-hmm.
I also discovered that we have not been paying our dog officer his due stipend, and we'll offer a warrant article to make up for that in May, as well as including it in our current budget.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Concerns of the selectmen?
Well, I have a statement and an apology to make. It's a response and an apology to the Parks and Recreation Committee. We have received an email from the chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee, Mr. Bodette, in reference to and critical of a statement I made at the January 13th meeting of this board. The way in which I stated my opinion in regard to the very large engineering project for the recreation field, which I hear may begin very soon, was prompted by my own awe of the scope and cost of the project. It was never my intention to offend anyone by what I said, nor did I intend for it to sound offensive. For that, I sincerely apologize to Mr. Bodett and the members of that committee. For those of you who watched the FCAT showing, you will note that I shared the feeling of appreciation stated by Selectman Bean for the dedicated work done by the Park and Recs Committee in particular, and for the work of all our town volunteers. There is a however to this. Never have I referred to any committee, nor any of its members, nor ever even unintentionally implied that of which I was accused. I quote the opening statement of the email. Quote, Jim Moore again portrayed the volunteers of the Park and Rec Committee as a self-serving, greedy entity. Nor am I guilty of, another statement, of constant character assault and insinuating that people volunteer for committees for some sort of personal gain. I was reminded by Mr. Bodett that I did not protest the town's approval at a duly posted town meeting of the $90,000 engineering study, nor did I attend the open forum to discuss or raise questions about the project. In my defense of these two specific things, let me state that I support the right of the people to know about and vote on issues, especially those concerning the money of all the people. So I vote with the select board to present these questions to the people for a vote, whether or not I agree with some particular proposal. Secondly, I attend numerous meetings as a member of the select board, while at times Mr. O'Rourke and or Mr. Dean act as representatives at other meetings, or sometimes all of us go. And then there are times that I cannot attend meetings for personal reasons. There was a meeting at the town hall, however, which I did attend. It was the presentation of the engineering report about the recreation field project. I listened to the report and I raised some questions about the project. There were some questions that I asked, though I may not have them in exact order in which they were asked, but what was relevant to me were the responses. First, I said, why would you dig out the basketball and tennis courts and move them to the lowest and usually the wettest part of the field? I think the why was not really answered, but the solution was to raise that area of the ball field with some fill before they put in the new installation of the baseball and tennis courts. I also asked, where will the water go that drains into the large filtration system to be installed? It will, as it does now, go into Pumpkin Hollow Brook in the South River, but it will no longer leach into the ground to the same extent, which seems to me to be a good and more natural thing. And I said, I asked about this project, and once it's completed, will it require maintenance? And it will require some maintenance, the engineer told me. My opinions are my opinions, and maybe they were out of place, and I am alone responsible for them. I think that there are others of the same opinion, but they will have to speak for themselves regarding this. The questions I asked on behalf of the people of the town who were not present for the presentation of the study, for which the people provided $90,000. I view that as part of my responsibility as a selectman. I try to responsibly represent, as best I can, the common interests of all the people of our community. I recognize the impossibility of doing that, so, like all of you who volunteer, I respect the trust placed in me by the people as a member of this select board. I do most sincerely apologize that my remarks at that meeting or any other meeting regarding this project were offensive to any of you. I never meant to do that. Respectfully submitted, Jim Moore. Thank you very much.
Very nice, Jim. Very nice. Okay. Any concerns that you might have, Rick?
None.
Okay. We have a couple of announcements. On January 30th, the Community Healthcare Initiative will sponsor a public forum entitled Mental Health and Drug Abuse in Franklin County, a Community Crisis. The forum will be held at Greenfield Middle School at 195 Federal Street in Greenfield. The doors will be open at 6:30 for access to service provider information tables. The panel discussion will begin at 7 p.m. with a question and answer period to follow. One other announcement, there's a FERCOG, Franklin Regional Council of Governments meeting February 11th to discuss a new forest designation. This is going to be held from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Town Hall General Purpose Room. Snow date will be February 12th. The Franklin Regional Council of Governments and the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, with the assistance of the Franklin Land Trust, are conducting public outreach to determine the level of interest in a new model of assistance and involvement by the state and U.S. Forest Service, which could provide federal funds to expand forestry activities on privately owned lands to support tourist-based businesses. So that's February 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. here in the Town Hall General Purpose Room. Okay. Okay, do we have anything else to discuss tonight? No?
I don't believe so.
Tom, do you have anything?
Nothing yet.
Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for February the 10th at 7 o'clock in this room. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
So just quick, on the next one, are we going next, is that next week or is that 2 weeks?
week after.
2 weeks.
Gotcha, perfect, all right.
Okay.
Second.
I'm good for adjourning?
You good? You
Yes,
sure?
I am,
Okay, you don't have
absolutely sure.
anything
Now
else?
that I got
Oh,
my dates straight, I'm all set.
Okay, good.
And me too.
Okay.